Good morning. How you doing? Banana milkshake in tow this morning. Kind of worried that it's a bit frothy, so I'm not sure if the bananas are particularly good this morning. It's what you got to expect from a spaceport, right? It's been 3 weeks we've been waiting for bananas. Somebody dumped them down here this morning in this corridor. I picked them up. Had them early, like 5 a.m. Kind of want to talk about networked flow state this morning. Definitely feel like I'm in that kind of vibe. Yesterday I put out a video about how I'm changing my strategy, tactics when it comes to crypto. I feel like crypto consumes too much of my life and it needs to change. As much as I love the technology and the software and what it can do for the world in terms of tracking and governance and just unpick all of those unknowns where all the middlemen are, or the middleware causes the issues, or the price gets inflated, or you just don't know the authenticity of the product. You only have to take countries like China, where they had an issue with fish, where the fish was actually coming from, and they started to track batches of it using a blockchain technology so that the consumer could see where it was coming from. So I kind of dig all of that stuff. That stuff's great. I think I just got a little bit too concerned on the daily, like got absorbed by it on daily, and that kind of messes with your flow state. Now there's a million people and a million videos where people talk about flow state, but mine is very much driven by what mood I'm in. And I would say for a lot of people, people who are sharp on the ball, very fit, exercise, educated, I would say a lot of people have a very clear focus of what they do with their lives on a daily basis. They have a schedule, they have a routine. So I've been making tweaks to that routine over the last month, mainly because of the weather change. Whenever a season change comes along, like winter, I'm kind of like the ultimate hermit. Like the heaters go on, the bundles of clothes go on, the hats go on, and I'm just like in cryo status, literally. I could live on a place like this easily and just wander the halls of it just all night, not a problem. So my kind of like idea this morning, while I was just like getting into my routine, doing my little schedule, doing my little tasks, is I love having that kind of flow state where I just flow from one task into another task, into another task. And I think for the last few years, crypto has given me that a little bit, because it gives me an outlet to create video and create content and connect with people. Like I've not really connected with people on like YouTube or DTube, but definitely on BSV, on Bitcoin BSV, like on Twitch and on Twitch and Relay X. Spoke to the team there, and while all those platforms are fantastic and all that networking is fantastic, it is very consuming, like mentally time consuming. And also those chains kind of have an expectation of you to be in their camp and their camp alone, which I don't understand. I don't understand why you can only be interested in Bitcoin, the pure Bitcoin BSV, or pure cash, or pure Bitcoin core, or just because people have different approaches and different methodologies, that's their networked flow state. That's what they see as the interpretation of good code. Their code is law expression. And so I don't understand like how we're gonna bring on hundreds of thousands, millions of people onto these platforms when on the outside there's a big branding problem, but also and a big PR problem, but also like it's not inviting for your average person. But then when I look at it from like a payment provider point of view, which is the majority of people are just wanting to do it faster and cheaper, people tend to change electricity provider or internet provider if it's cheaper and it's better, or just as good and cheaper, without digging too much into why. Like most people don't really care why, and that's probably why we've got a problem with climate, is because we don't know what goes on behind the scenes or over the back of a fence somewhere down the road. So it got me thinking about network flow state this morning in terms of like how my morning was panning out. Like I've literally just ordered something from the evil Amazon, which arrives tomorrow, which is going to be part of my flow state, in that I'm going to integrate that into my morning routine. And by having that in my morning routine, the knock-on effects will be that I drink a lot more water and I'll be a lot more healthier and I get more exercise, which in turn gives me more focus, gives me more clarity, allows me to then have the ability to network. If I'm cloudy, if I'm unfocused, my networked part of the flow state doesn't exist. It doesn't work. I can't network with people because I'm so consumed by trying to get it back into a flow state. So I think this is going to get really interesting as we get into more decentralized platforms, in that, you know, we spend a bit of time over here, we spend a bit of time over there, we want to be in the community for like a millisecond and then jump back out again. There's no kind of, in the same way that there's no job for life anymore, like you just start a job, learn a job, be an intern, move through the ranks, be a manager. There's no job for life. There's no job for 10, 15, 20 years now. If you look at the data, most people are changing their jobs probably about 10, 15 times in a space of about 10, 15 years. You know, literally people are changing hats into different roles like never before, because those jobs and those spaces are getting eaten up. And I'm not going to blame technology or AI or whatever. It's just that we're optimizing the way that those things are done. And so that's one of the reasons why I still think crypto, blockchain, ledgers in any way, digital ledgers, distributed digital ledgers, are going to still win or still be a valuable digital technological need, because you need to track this stuff. Like if we're going to make something better, if we're going to optimize it, if the client's going to want to know where it's from, who made it, when it was made, how it got to them, especially for all of our like coffee and all of these like very much like human commodities that we use on a daily basis, if a lot of those are going away because the climate is radically changing the environment for them to grow in, losing, you know, topsoil every single year, the quality of the topsoil is getting worse. You know, we're going to start looking at people who are going the extra mile and having drones up in the air and scanning like the fields to make sure that the field quality and the crop quality is good. That information becomes their social media, because the more you put that stuff out that we're doing this and the farm on the next field doesn't, you're going to go to that provider because they're giving you more information about their end product. And so this like networked flow state for a user, like imagine if all jobs went away tomorrow. What would all humans on planet Earth do? Just sit around, just like get drunk, smoke a joint? Like probably, but also there would be a bunch of people wanting to do stuff. And so that's when projects like basic income come into effect, which is kind of like a augmented network flow effect, right? You want people want to feel like they're creating value, providing value, building back into society things that are useful. So if I can make little micro changes on a local level, if I can change my exercise patterns, if I can change my water intake, if I can like put little bits in that flow in the morning, then I feel like such a better human, like better to interact with people, better to provide like ideas, better to like craft and shape some of those things. Otherwise I'm just completely like consumed by all this stuff. It just overwhelms me. There's just so much stuff fired at you on a daily basis, things to learn, things to see, things that are wrong with the planet, like things that you can be doing, little changes you can be doing, and it can be a lot, and you can end up trapped by it, and I don't want to be trapped by it. And crypto does that a little bit, because it went from having an interest in a couple of platforms to then ending up with like 8,000 different cryptos, and the majority, 95% of them, will die off, but there'll be probably 5 or 10 really big ones, a bit like the music manufacturers, you know, like the Sonos or like the Sony. You know, these names are going to be around, I think, forever, because they've built that kind of legacy in there. There's some very interesting like elements of all of this stuff that like keep me invested in it, and I think it's all of this is a long play. We like when people speak of like being early, like nobody your average Joe is not looking at any of this stuff. Like, they've heard about Bitcoin, but they've probably maybe done a search on what blockchain is. But then as soon as you jump down the rabbit hole of that and start looking at white papers and stuff, I think the majority of people switch off. Like, white papers are fascinating, but they're just like looking into somebody else's flow state, like how they expect the world to run on their parameters, or like logic gate parameters of how things could be or should be run. But there's something very kind of like standoffish for that for me as well. Like, it feels very 1984, you know. It feels like you're just swapping one set of leaders for another set of leaders. And so I kind of like the idea of being more of that decentralized node that sits on the periphery, like on the edge, that can just swap and change based on my moods, my flow, and the network effect flow, right? Because you see it all the time. People are interested in Bitcoin for a bit, and then something gets hacked and it crashes, and people pull the money out because they get scared, and they won't look into the reasons of the whys, or they won't even follow up to see if it got fixed. You know, there's so many things that have been iterated and tweaked and enhanced and improved, but people don't see that. They just see the end product, or a big news article gets blown out of proportion to destroy any of that speculation that something over here is better than what you've been offered on a daily basis. The idea that we used to have money stuffed under mattresses, and then banks came along and we decided that banks were safer and we should put it there instead. And then we had this torrent of like phone calls from the banks, like ringing you up about, do you want an overdraft, do you want this, do you want that? And then finding out via news that actually these banks are not very safe and they're getting hacked and yada yada yada. And then the same has happened with cryptos. So there's a lot more human behavioral stuff that we need to dig deep in on a daily basis. Greed is definitely one of them. I feel like we all have a level of greed that we want for our lives, for ourselves. And I feel like if I have more of a clear mind, I'm less thinking about the one, and I'm trying to think more of the many, because every time I've done that, I've always got more back. Like either karma, or just a good feeling, or just the most random like thing has just popped up. Like I got a job the other week from a guy who literally just wanted to book me for like 30 minutes. So I could show him, like on a one-to-one Zoom call, like how to do something, because he hadn't done it in a few years and he wanted a refresher. And I get paid out on that today, and I'm going to add a bit more money to it, not much, and that's my food for the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think that real-time networked flow, as soon as we've got AI in the mix, and the AI kind of knows everything about you in terms of your mood swings, your fitness tracking, all of that stuff. I know that's scary and a privacy issue, and you don't like computers telling you what to do or being that invasive, but I think if you have notifications that are popping up that are suggestive, that you can say yes or no to, and actually most of the time they may be really good for you, that's a world that I'm kind of interested in. Obviously I want to be able to opt in and opt out of that on a hourly basis, but I think that's stuff that we're slowly starting to see and slowly starting to realize. I realize that we've had this from a centralized expression, and Facebook has just been like collecting that data and then selling it on to other people free of charge. We see that now in the UK with the NHS. All of your data is being centralized, and you have to opt out of that being shared. So we're going to see an influx of like third-party health providers literally targeting us on those data points. And so expect emails and stuff through your door, and very, very like appealing and very focused on your stuff. And ask yourself the question, do I want that in a centralized place that anybody can investigate or anybody can tap into? Or do I want that decentralized that I can manage, so that my everyday natural flow is not modified by somebody else? That's me today. You have a great day wherever you are. I like doing these little vlogs in the old space station. Tomorrow will be a different part of the space station. It's 8:10. My flow state now is breakfast, and then after this I'm going to upload it and then write a blog post to my partner who's 3,000 miles away, and then I'm going to get into OBS and start making some cool shit. I'll see you later. Bye.